Hey, hello, hello. Well, that's a bit complicated, but like for everybody, it's kind of difficult to explain themselves in 5 words, so I'm gonna be a bit longer. Okay, so I'm French originally, as you can tell, I'm sure. I worked in the industry for yeah, about 20 years. I first started in video games back in France a long time ago. And I left France, I was very bored, and I also realized that the window of opportunity was very small for me there. And I started working for the movie industry after a little ordeal because it wasn't so easy at the beginning. I had to live in in squats in London for 6 months before I could get my foot into the door of the Jim Henson Switch Shop, which is that amazing studio that worked on. Well, it was created by Jim Henson when he wanted to set up the Muppet Show originally, but they also made the Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, and shitloads of other cool stuff that they were subcontracting for other companies. Animatronics, but also plenty of designs and creatures mainly. So I started being a creature designer, or actually a creature sculptor at the very beginning, even though sculpting is not really my job. I mean, I know how to sculpt, but at the time it was a bit odd to start on that. And I worked for Flintstones, #2, glorious movie, doing a lemon squeezer, which was a tiny little dinosaur with a lemon squeezer head. Anyway, I spent 4 years in London working for them, and I gradually became one of their main designers. I became an art director there, and I got a bit bored also, and I realized that again my window of opportunity was not as large as I thought, and I became I started working as a freelancer. So I was a freelancer throughout the Jim Henson Switch Shop event, but I was so often there that it was as if I was full time. With that special little freedom that you have when you are not bound by a contract, so you can say to people that you don't want to come, or tell them to fuck off if you want to. Well, no, but you're laughing, but it's it's a good thing to have in your sleeve. And then what did I do? I had to help saving the ass of a production down in Italy. It was a horror movie film who had been made, and they realized way too late that they needed an art director for the VFX. And I had worked a bit for the director who was in London at the time to do some designs for it, for the VFX side of it. And he liked it so much that he catapulted me to Milan to become the VFX art director on the movie. I had a good time there. It was very cold. The production was interesting. I had to do things that I had never done before, and it was fun. Also, quite. I mean, it was under pressure, but fun. And I met some good friends. They took me under their wings. They were Americans. They had also at the time 20 years of experience in the movie industry. One was a producer, having had an award on Starship Troopers, and the other one had an award. He was a VFX supervisor, Tim McGovern, who had an award on Total Recall, the first one. We became friends, and they took me around, and they decided to never leave me. Like, when you find an Igor, keep him. So that was it. And I followed. I ended up in Prague for a year. It was fun. And I went back and forth in LA, where I lived for 6 or 7 years. I can't really remember. Time in LA is kind of blurry. And came back to Europe, where I lived for 5 years in Brussels, working remotely with American companies and Canadians. And now I've been living in Berlin for the past 5 years, where I'm doing pretty much the same. So I spend most of my time designing for video games or movies. That's it, really. What? I'm old, mate. You will get there, hopefully. There you go. A banana transporter. It has to be specifically a banana transporter, which shortens my chances of dying stupidly. Um, so yeah, mostly what I do is design for video games, design for movies. There's a big part of me who's since my childhood, passionate about, and it's comic books. My studies were first applied arts, but I did also the International Comic Book Art School of Saint-Luc in Brussels. So I've, in theory, learned how to do comics over there. But I say in theory because I really learned with other comic book artists, and by reading shitloads of comics. So that's a big love of mine. And that's what I originally wanted to do, and I ended up not doing it at the beginning of my career, and now I take for the past 5 years now, or 6 years, I've been taking the back door, where I guess I'm playing the little fame I have in the movie and video game circle as a designer to publish my own stuff without really having to go through the pain that most comic book artists have to go through, which is cool. I like that, since I don't come up with mainstream stuff, or not as mainstream as most things coming out. It's good. It's good for me, I guess. I'm enjoying myself, which is good. Yeah, that was just for fun. I don't do that for DC. They suddenly have no idea that I'm doing it. Yeah, eventually. But the reason why I did that is, well, first to get a bit of exposure, because, well, if you do Batman, you obviously get a couple more eyes looking at your stuff. But also because I wanted to do an homage to the Bat, and also And also because it's one of those icons that any comic book artist of my generation wants to tackle. And me being me, wanting to control everything, the design and also the writing of things, that was pretty much the only chance I would have ever had to do a graphic novel on Batman all by myself, because I'm not known enough in that circle to have DC come to me and say, draw and write a Batman for us. So, like most times in my career, I've realized that it's kind of silly and pointless to try to make people understand that you can do things. You really have to show them that you can, and if you want to do that, most of the time you just have to finish the thing and put it under their nose and say, okay, look, there, it's done. You like it or you don't, but it's finished and it works. So yeah, at some point, for example, I will ramble a lot. I do that, but at some point, when I was working for Hanson's, and this is one of the reasons why I left Hanson. I was coming up with ideas for TV series and films. We even with a friend of mine, Sky Ferrante, had set up a sort of satellite company. So we had been given an office within the walls of Hanson's to develop our own stories, to cater them to them. Which was a lot of fun. It lasted maybe a couple of years, and I realized that the guys at the Creature Shop were very, very nice, but that we would have more chances to try in LA what we were coming up with. So. So yeah, I had to go through the same process where I would originally come up with a list of ideas, pretty well described, with a backbone for a story, a file with some artwork for each concept, and sell the concepts, thinking that you can go to a production company and say, look, part of what sells, part of what is very important for a movie or whatever else is a concept. If you don't have the concept, then it's just writing, and it can be good or bad. But I was thinking that you could just sell concepts, which we did. We optioned a couple stuff, and nothing came of it, because we didn't realize at the time that we needed to have the energy to stay with the producers, sometimes hold their hands and carry the thing through. So yeah. So since that period, I decided to just finish everything. And since I'm relatively fast, I can do that. So on my free time, I start a comic book, finish it in a month, and well, it depends. It depends if it's I've got many graphic novels that I've finished already. So there's a French series of 10 books, 10 times 300 pages, but it's like an illustration per page, and it's like a pocket book kind of thing. That was done, written and drawn, each book in a month. So 10 pages written in the morning, drawn in the afternoon, and that was my free time for the day. So I had to do a second shift on a movie on the same day. Yeah, the first books for that series were a bit I mean, I was super excited because it was the first time I was actually finishing a comic book, so I was like, I was ecstatic. I didn't feel like I was working myself to death, but there's yeah. So I wrote 4 books of that series. There's the 5th one I'm finishing, and there's plenty of others if you guys are interested. And if you don't know where to look, you can go to my own independent publishing house. It's called the Dynamo Press. So the dynamopress.com. And the Batman was done in a week. So 25 pages in a week. In a week, yeah. But this one was a bit different in the sense that I was just drawing the pages and I would come up with the story when it's done. So yeah, no, afterwards. So in that instance, I was going with the feeling, knowing that roughly things would happen while I was drawing, and I was trying to figure out the pace, the rhythm of things, and I would come up with the story afterwards, but like completely separately. With the series of 10 books I was talking to you about, then it's completely entwined, so you have the writing and the drawing during the same day. I don't always work that way, but I like to mix it up and have fun. But most of the time, it's improvised because I find it more challenging, and it's like juggling with a lot of eggs, and not breaking any and making sure that you catch them all at the end. I find it. Yeah, it's kind of writing extreme sport or something, which is fun. And lately, I've been into games. We just set up our first indie game. Yeah, there you go. See, I remember it. We just set up our first indie video game studio. So it's called the Boredom Ministry, and our first game is called Headache, and I'm already very proud of it. Not only because it's the mind-boggling stories of the Black Frog, which is very egotistic, but also because it's going to be an awesome game, and the two guys I'm working with, and we haven't been working together for a very long time. We've been basically setting up the studio like a month ago, and that was it. They were just acquaintances or friendly, and then we just became friends, and we realized that we were kind of complementing each other very well, and that we had the same kind of sensibility, same kind of sense of humor. And yeah, so Grégoire Delzongle for the coding and the animation, and Rick Bull, aka Deep Child, for the music and the sounds. And yeah, look it up. Keep watching because we'll put up some stuff very soon, and in a year, but we'll have hopefully a playable slice of the alpha for August. We're trying to get our ass together to the biggest European convention of video game called Gamescom in Köln in August. So yeah, you're more likely to see us there if you go to the Gamescom. But thanks. Okay, well, first you would have to define the that for a living. It's kind of broad. All I wanted to do really was to either become a fireman like any other child or a clown. Uh, and, and at age 4, I realized that I wanted none of that. I wanted to draw comic books because I had the chance or the bad luck. I don't know how you see it. How you see that to fall in front of a 2 meters tall pile of heavy metal when I was 4, and the magazine, which was originally French, and so you've got people like Moebius, Drouillet, plenty of guys, Casa. And yeah, that was fucking awesome. I just had to do exactly the same. At the time, I didn't even think about it. I was just so engrossed with reading this stuff. So all the golden age of it's not actually my generation. I'm not that old. I realized that most of the comic books I'm into, or really into, are from the previous generation. So my father's generation. And I tend to think, certainly because I'm a bit reactionary, that was the time where they still knew how to draw. And it's long gone for most artists. So yeah, my biggest inspiration, or at least the first I had, was that my father was also an illustrator, and he was an art teacher, and so I haven't necessarily learned from him much, except maybe perspective. I remember the course in an evening. He taught me everything he knew about perspective, and I was like, okay. And I still use it to this day, so it was a good one. But mostly, I guess that I always wanted to do like he was doing. So you've got your father setting up an easel, and you would have the little Igor in his bedroom setting up the very same easel, but like the mini version of it. With like the reference pictures pinned exactly at the same spot and stuff. And like any other child, I was covering paper with shit. So the only difference with most of them is that I never stopped. So yeah, that's the beginning. Now, because of that start, because of these references, I had a certain kind of sensibility that that the next generations of comic book artists didn't necessarily have. So when I come up with stuff, most of people don't really get it, or which is completely fine by me. I don't mind. But the ones who understand it or react to it are people who know the old stuff and know better where I'm coming from. So that's the first step. After that, what? So Moebius is a big influence. I would like to think that. I mean, I'm sure that I'm one of 2 billion people who think the same. But I would like to think that I've got a little spirit of Moebius somewhere, like a grain. I've met the guy a couple times, and I was lucky enough to see him before he died, and we didn't have that kind of long conversations that you're always yearning for with people that you really are fascinated by. But the thing is that, and I will expose myself to the world right now, I never cried as much and as hard as I did when I realized that he had just died, and like really bad, really, you know, like choking. And it lasted a complete evening. So I'm not saying that to you guys to tell you that I'm a wuss. I'm just saying that it really resonated in me, and for I had to look back at it and try to understand why I was so upset. And I guess that it's one of those fears that most of us have. To me, Moebius is the paramount of what a concept artist or a visual creator could become. Because he was so into it, he was so gone. That's what he was doing every day, all the fucking time. And he was brilliant at it. And he was going in all directions, and you would not even understand where he gets his inspirations from. Or so is it the drugs he took in the desert? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. My point is, that guy clearly, I don't know if it's because he was French and not in the right place at the right time or that kind of stuff, even though he worked on pretty awesome stuff. But, even though he's super talented, like extremely, extremely super talented, even though he's known all over the world for being so fucking talented, he didn't have the most amazing life in terms of you know, wealth or comfort. Or I mean, I don't know it. I mean, I was not one of his close friends or a friend either, actually. But I know people who were, and it doesn't seem to be a person who died in wealth. He wasn't poor, but he wasn't. He didn't get the amount of recognition and comfort he was deserving, basically. And seeing somebody who is the idol that you want to you know, that point in time, in space, in talent that you would like to reach, and seeing that even him doesn't really make it is kind of disturbing, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to, you know, it all depends on how you look at things and who you are looking at who. And, we all can be, you know, like rock stars, or it depends on if you look at, you know, you posting some cool shit on the net, or you drinking a coffee after having picked up the newspaper. You know, it's like, it all depends. It's all very relative. So anyways, so that was the reason why I was a bit upset. So that's Moebius, and Moebius opened my eyes in many ways, in the sense that I think that was the first guy I was impressed by on the fact that he had two very distinct styles, and and I made a career having like 200 of them, but it's fun, but I've kind of, sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself. There's always somebody who's telling you, you know, oh, we recognize your style. And, maybe, yeah, maybe not. Or what's your style? Or I don't know. So I always elude by saying that I'm considering myself being more of a storyteller than an artist, really, because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm more of a toolbox than anything else. I've been spending my complete career being somebody who's devising new tools. So for every director or producer I'm working for, so they could feel comfortable and I could make something tailor made for them. And it worked out well. That's I could even go on a tangent saying, there's a lot of people in the industry, either the video game or the movie industry, who are very specialized. It seems to be a very American thing, actually, to be very specialized. It works both ways. You can be either super specialized in one thing and be really good at it, and you can get jobs just for that, or you can do a million things and also be hunted for that very reason because you're very flexible and. I mean, you would need a lot of clones and tentacles to be able to do everything in one production all by yourself, but it's also very nice for a company usually to have somebody who's very multi-tentacled, so you can give him whatever kind of work comes in, and the company itself can become more flexible because of their workers. So yeah, it's the kind of questions I get quite often, and in my in my uh, in my particular case, I could not even do one thing or just one thing if I even wanted to. I just couldn't. It would kill me. I couldn't. I would just shoot myself after a week. Just because, yeah, I'm like that. I jump from one thing to another all the time. I get super bored super fast. So, and I'm also very lazy. I'm I'm going to lose all my clients right now. No, I'm just saying. I'm also very lazy, and this is why I'm working so hard because I know I'm lazy. If I stop, I will never start again. And it started at school. Actually, I was in drawing in that matter. I was always one of the best, and uh, and at the same time, I was hated by most teachers because I would not do much. So they would always see me in the corridors, just roaming around, doing shit, having fun. And I would just work super fast and super hard during at night or anytime, preferably last minute. And yeah, that's kind of what I've carried through. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it's what I do. So I get the job done, but it also gets me. It pushed me to work so fast that I can relax. You understand what I'm saying? It's like I really burn it, but I buy myself some time to just take a fucking coffee, breathe a bit, and and then people look at you and you're in the corridors and they're like, "What the fuck is he doing?" I was like, "Well, I worked 3 hours, but they're worth 9." So yeah. Well, then now I've got so many favorite artists that I would whip like a girl all the fucking time. So I cannot, you know, I have a reputation to keep. I can't do that. Um, so yeah, that's after that. There's plenty of great artists. I think that in one of the posts on my blog, I've started making a list of all the guys I'm really impressed by. It's not an exhaustive list. It expands all the time. There's plenty of 19th century painters that I'm really in love with. There's plenty of 19th century painters that I'm discovering every day, especially Russian painters that are awesome. They're just, you look at their stuff and you hurt. Yeah, it was like, oh no! And you didn't know that guy, and it was just a farmer. And he did 3 paintings, and they killed you, and you're like, ah, fuck. Um, awesome guy that you just discovered on Blogger. Yesterday, I was looking for stuff, and you know, Facebook is killing you. Also, it's always popping up with some really talented shit, and sometimes I really want to dig a hole and put my head in it and not look at Facebook ever again. Yeah, a lot of artists I've met that I worked for or worked with or made friends with, or all the guys at Massive Black, they're fucking awesome. I don't know, plenty. But yeah, I saw somebody on your thread asking what are the masters that one should study. Well, to that question, mate, I would say anybody who you think is a master or that other people think are masters, you should study. Anything that comes your way that is great, you should study. If it's better than you, study it. But further than that, if you're really impressed by somebody's work, if you're really not his beard, I don't want to hear anything about beard. So if you're really impressed by his work, dig further. After you analyze his stuff, after you try to understand where he's coming from, his sensitivity, his sensibility, his sense of composition, his sense of color, what kind of tricks or gimmicks he's using. Try to understand who he was very impressed by. And then go and dig further. So you can have 3-4 generations of people that are masters just because they had masters. And you will eventually get to the root of it and realize how fucking awesome the guys like 3 or 4 generations before were. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of youngsters who are just looking on the surface, and they should look a bit deeper, because it always helps. And you know, it's like Kung Fu. It has been around for quite a while, and there's a reason why it's so good. It's because people thought about it for a long time. Painting, same thing. So yeah. A strong visual library. Live. Live. See things live. Okay. So all of us, it goes also for writing, by the way. All of us, every single minute or second that we're living are as much gems that you can put in your bag. Everything that you look at, you can see if you pay attention. There's a difference between looking and seeing. Because the visual library, everybody's got it. Unless you've been locked up, like I was when I was a child, attached to a radiator in a cupboard. If you have eyes and if you were not locked up in a cupboard, then all the things that you've seen are already in your library. The brain is amazing. Now, the only reason why you could be able to use that library is because you pay attention to what you're looking at. And how do you pay attention to that? Well, you have to analyze things, and you analyze the reflection of the light on metal, or there's a ruler here, there's a bit of plastic here. Why is the reflection any different from that to that? Why does it scratch differently? Is the scratching reflecting the thing a bit differently? All of that you basically know, but you don't pay attention to it enough. How does the light go through the dust? What's the visual representation of that? Why is it happening? I've got a friend who's called Matthias Veraselt, who's like a fucking genius. We used to come up with his brushes, and we were already dying when he was doing that. But we also realized that he was going about things and about light like a scientist. So he would just analyze everything. And he became very good, very fast. And his brother is taking the same route, actually. Ulysse. So yeah, anything can be analyzed. If you look at a machine outside, if there's a construction site, you look at the machine and it's not just a bulldozer, it's a thing that works for this and this and this reason. The hydraulic pumps, the engine, how it's connected. You can become a geek about everything. So after that, you really have to just prevent yourself from only doing that. But the idea should be, if you want to be an artist, in my opinion, and if you want to become somebody with a wide visual library, then start understanding how to make things. My visual library was helped quite a bit by the fact that my father, before becoming an art teacher, was an antique dealer for 10 years. So I spent my complete childhood surrounded by amazing objects. And they were well made because they were old stuff, and most of them made by hand, and you would have to look at the thing and try to realize how it was crafted and why it was that shape and what kind of use that thing had. Actually, that's one of the most fun things that you have to go through when you're buying stuff on flea markets. It's trying to understand the use of an object if you've never seen it before. And there's plenty of things that are like, oh, okay, so it looks a bit like this one, and it's the same era, so what were they doing, and blah, blah, blah. So you develop a knowledge about things, about how objects work and why. And this is very, very fundamental and important for a character designer or a designer in anything, really. If you're an object designer, then the chair that you're sitting on has to be comfortable, otherwise it kills your butt. If you're designing a creature, everything about that creature has to make sense in its environment, or it's stupid. And it doesn't work, and it shouts at the world that it doesn't work. There's some examples of that I will not talk about, but you can figure it out by yourself. But there's plenty of monsters on movies that are either really badly made, in which case you look at the monster and you're like, yeah, whatever, or too well made, and I'm explaining myself. The design is too cool, and too cool kills the cool. Too cool for a movie, for example. If the design is too cool, you just look at the design and stop the movie in your head and look at the design and say, "Wow, that's cool." It sounds okay if you say it like that, but as a story maker, as a filmmaker, you're fucked when that happens to you, because you've just lost your audience for like 5 seconds, and or 10 or a minute if the guy is asking, "Oh, yeah, but he had the Hoover on his head. Why does he have a Hoover on his head?" So yeah, you have to. It's an art. Being a concept artist is not something that, I mean, everybody can do it, but do it well is a different matter. If you look at all the amazing designs that the guys did for Star Wars, for the first ones, all those guys were designing for Boeing, and you can feel it. You can feel that even though those things will never fly, they feel like they could. So, and there's a reason for that. It's because not only had they integrated the visual library that they had seen, but they also had integrated what makes it look like it works. Mostly because most of those guys knew how to make it work, or knew how to design the real things. Yeah, it's functionality or the understanding of how things work, so you can give the idea that it does. It's more the spirit of an object, the spirit of a machine. Even though you don't know the blueprints of the engine, or you understand that this thing is there for a reason, and even though you don't know what reason it is, it kind of makes sense with the rest. As a rule of thumb, yeah, it's difficult to say. It's a mouthful. As a rule of thumb, if something doesn't look right, it's wrong. If something looks like you're not sure if it's one way or the other, if the designer wanted it like this or like that, it's wrong. Especially for composition, I could develop that for hours. But if you're not sure if something is supposed to be in the middle or on the side or a bit on the side, if you're not sure, if it's not super clear, then it's wrong. That's it, really. It kind of sounds stupid, but yeah, there's a science to that. I assure you. All of it. Yeah. I couldn't live without doing all of it at the same time. So no, I guess that you could crumple everything into a little bowl and make the juice of it, and see that the juice is actually making stories. I'm more about creating worlds than anything else, really. So all the visual stuff that you see me do, being be it sculpting or drawing or painting or comic books, all of that doesn't really matter to me. It's just tools. The same way I would take a pen or a brush or a toilet brush. Um, it's the same thing. It's just a different medium to express better the story that it expresses. But so yeah, creating worlds is is what fascinates me. Yeah. Well, it's a constant question actually. I'm sure that I'm not the only one having that question being bumped into my head. Uh, I guess that one of my favorite places so far has been Prague, because it's an amazing place. It's beautiful. The architecture is amazing. It's small enough, so you get the good thing about a city, but it also feels like a tiny little village. So and you have seasons there, so you can enjoy the summers and really die during the winters. I love the music there. Um, it's just yeah, Prague. Now that's not a place where you can work, so you will have to work remotely from there. I also visit Tokyo. Tokyo looks great. It's very refreshing. It's very exotic, especially for us Westerners. There's tons and tons of amazing stuff to look at. It's crazy over there. There's plenty of shit happening all the time. Um, but you do not want to work for Japanese people. They're insane. They work so much. It's crazy. So no, but it's like, and I feel like I'm working a lot, but it's I mean, they're beautiful in that, but it's their culture. I visited plenty of studios over there. I was carrying my portfolio around, and I went to see all the biggest animation studios and Mistwalker and that kind of stuff for video games. And they had sleeping bags under the desks, and they were 40, 50 years old. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, no. uh, so yeah, living in Tokyo or living in Kyoto, yeah, why not? It's beautiful, but not working for people there, or at least not Japanese people, because they really are on a different level. Um, uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't tried everything yet. Prague so far, yeah. Oh, I'm the one announcing them. Yeah, I've got one by one actually, but okay, yeah. Yes. So yes, the first one would be. Can I say it? Can I say it? I can say it. I well, okay. I'm waiting for you then. Fine. Okay. So the first one would be Joel Kilpatrick. Um, and we'll go into that afterwards. The second one would be Eric Summers, and the third one would be Hector Paul. I hope, guys, my French accent didn't scratch your names too much. Um, I'm doing my best. Um, so should we go into it to explain why? Yeah. So yeah. So okay, I'm putting it up. So what I like about that one is that first it's very clean. When I'm saying very clean, it's not necessarily a good thing. I'm just saying it's very clear, and it makes it very professional, which is great. It's also it's a well. There's a lot to be said about a good presentation. It's the first impression, you know, that bullshit about people. Like, the first impression is the best thing that can happen. Blah, 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 whatever. The first impression is very important. It is. It's not only just bullshit. The second thing is the beard. He did it for that. No, I'm joking. He might have thought about it though, but it doesn't matter. I'm not reacting to that. It's too easy. No, but it's very well done. It's if you look at the scars on McConaughey's face, it's really well done, and it's not just well drawn or well adapted. It's also very intelligently done. It's not a usual scar. It's not just a tiny little cut over the eye like most scars that you see. It makes it interesting. He reinvented the scar on the head. This is great. So blah blah blah. Plenty of good ideas for the helmets. Not a big fan of the gold double winged thing. I guess that I'm not a big fan because it doesn't necessarily look Roman, and that was part of the thing to look Roman. But most of his designs do, and that's just one helmet out of the lot. And there's so many good little bits, like the black metal mask with the gold drop coming out of his eyes, and oh, and there's another thing. People will just suddenly cry at what I'm about to say, but I hate science fiction stuff with blue glowy shit. Yeah, no, I don't care. I don't care. I think it works very well for Tron, and Tron did it perfectly. For the first movie was amazing for that. It was kind of the first time you saw it, and from Tron on, everything that you would come up with that would have that on it would look like Tron, and everything that has that on it looks like Tron. So I don't want to see Tron. I want to see that. So, guys, as a whole, as a crowd, please make an effort. Come up with your own stuff, your own vision of what is sci-fi, what is the future, what is a thing that looks tech. It doesn't have to be a fucking glowy blue shape. So the other thing I'm reacting to is the sword. To me, but also because of my background, I was a medieval real weapon stuntman for a couple of years. So a sword to me is very important. To me, a sword has to work. And there's so many designs out there that are just making it's like a cardboard cutout version of a sword. There's no balance to it. There's no hilt. There's no nothing. Or it's too fucking big. Or how can you yield that? How can you move it around? Is it? I don't know. You can't. So anything that is too big to me is a bit much. So in some instances it works, and I guess that when it's too big, it usually comes from either Final Fantasy or Warhammer Battle. which is completely fine. But one of the bad thing about the industry is that it's like it's inbred. Designers have been fucking other designers for far too long now, and they're coming up with the same shit. So it's fine to have that style, and I completely agree with the fact that you should have it once because it's new, it's cool. Why not? And I think that I don't know Final Fantasy that much. I'm not necessarily that generation, or at least I didn't touch it as much as some of my friends. But I was a big Warhammer player when I was a teenager, and I was a big Warhammer player because I was finding the design cool, and it works. I mean, there was a reason why they would make everything so disproportionate. Is because they had to make it in a 2 centimeters, 0.5 millimeters figure, so it would hold all the details that could be molded, could be cast. So everything that was thin had to have a certain thickness or girth. So in that instance, it works, and if the complete world is like that, that's fine. But I've seen too much of it, and it makes me sick. So, going back to that sword, it looks like it works. It looks like, I mean, except for the first one where there's some blue shit on it, but you're like, okay, you look at the second one, it's like, oh, okay, why not? Yeah, there's some tiny leaves there, that's very subtle. I like subtle. Subtle is good. Why not? The third one looks a bit too Persian or Thracian or Greek because of the waves. But okay, the second one works, so doesn't matter. And by the way, that's the one he chose because it's on the top. It's great. And after that, the designs for the things, for the costumes, yeah, it's within the brackets that we've given. The colors are okay. It's not that complicated to get it right, but yeah, it's good. Does it look like a spacesuit? Man, there's some ideas of it. It's not what I had in mind exactly, but it works. The fact that he's got some ways of covering his head so he could breathe some other air within the suit works. And yeah, I like the overall design. I like. I'm not sure what he wanted to do with the foot, but why not? Okay, it gives some more depth to the story that hasn't been told. But okay, so yeah, all in all, impressive work. I would definitely see that on the art department of any movie. So good job. Second one, Eric Summers. So this one, so that looks Roman enough. We had given as an indication that the city should be felt in very vertical kind of way. It looks sci-fi. The quality of the drawing is pretty good. I guess that's mainly what I went for this one. It's answered all the things that were asked, and at the same time it feels strong. It's a pretty good illustration. I could definitely see that in some illustrations for AD&D or that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, it's all in all very good. I don't have much to say about it except that I don't like the sword necessarily very much, but it's the pommel of the sword is kind of weird. It feels a bit chunky for no real good reason, but at least it feels like it could work, which is a good point. Um, and the posture is good. The composition is alright. There's a bit of a gap on the top. It's kind of missing something. The eye is kind of drawn by something here, and it's dangerous to make too big of a gap in an illustration where it's like a sucking void where your eye is taken, and if you take the eye of your reader somewhere, you better make sure that he has something to look at. And in there, all there is to look at is the cloud. So yeah, fix that if you want to make it better. And the third one would be Hector Paul. Hector Paul, the stuff of Hector Paul. So the reason why I went for this one, even though, as I explained, I'm not a big fan of chunky design. Well, first, it's relatively clean also, so that's good for presentation. The composition of the picture could be better. I'm not going to go in details on that, but and the proportions of the guy is kind of disturbing. If you look at just the real guy in his armor, you're thinking that he's certainly dismantled underneath, but why not? It could be part of the thing, we don't know. There's a bit of a perspective mishap on the sword, but we'll just ignore that. Because the main thing about that illustration or that design is that the chunky works in that case. I like the pamphlet stuck on the sword. It's pretty cool. It's cool because you never see it like that. Most of the people would just write a line of runes along the sword, but not like that. Many of you did, actually. There's no mistake, it's of Roman influence, and there's no mistake, it's a spacesuit. And the bulk is imposing enough to definitely make an impression. So if you look at that picture from far away, you're like, okay, that's a design. It stands up. And if you look at it closer, you're like, okay, there's some interesting details. Why not? Sure. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the forearm, the right forearm, which is a bit weak compared to the design, the decoration on the other plates, and the spiky wingies on the sword, not a big fan either. But these are just details, and overall, it's pretty good. So there, those are the winners. So yeah, I would say for the others, if they didn't make the three, it's mostly because either they were looking too heroic fantasy and therefore not really answering the brief. So that would be the first thing, the first factor I was used to eliminate, or because the idea was a bit weak, or because the drawing was a bit so yeah, I would go for answering the brief first, then elimination, ID second, then an elimination, and then drawing. So there, I think that the drawing aspect is not necessarily the most important. It feels like I'm lying, but it's not completely true. I'm not completely lying in the sense that anybody can photo bash anything. You know, like you just learn Photoshop for a month and you can Google some shit and photo bash something interesting. Interesting in the sense that if you photo bash it intelligently, you can come up with a good design that looks pretty professional. Whether or not I'm the advocate of photo bashing, not absolutely not. But by experience, I know that most producers are, because they can't. They have it's difficult for them to make the jump in their head because they're not visual. So anything that looks closer to something that is photoreal will help communicate whatever you want to communicate. And also because I'm not worried about the fact that some of you don't know how to draw an apple. It doesn't matter, because eventually, if you work hard enough, you will. And at some point, you will be amazing at drawing. So I know for a fact that it's all about work, dedication and work. And if you work hard enough, you will get there. So I'm not worried about that. All I'm worried about is your brain, because what is really important in designing stuff for either video games or movies is inventing stuff. Or since it's difficult to invent stuff, since we've seen everything 2,000 times before, let's say that you're cooks and that I'm asking you to come up with a new soup with the same ingredients, or you just add another ingredient that was not supposed to go there, and you're like making the most amazing soup suddenly. It's possible even with the same ingredients to make a different soup. It depends how you cook it. So it's the same in design. You can flip. It's like a combination of code for a lock, or it can be anything. It doesn't matter if it's the same fucking 10 numbers. It's gonna be different. So there's as many combinations. But all I want to say is make the effort of making it different. Don't stupidly copy the bloody blue flashy line that goes on everything just because it's sci-fi. There's many ways of making something look sci-fi. Do some research. Look at what people are coming up with now, what people were coming up with in the 30s, what was sci-fi in 1900. Everybody had a different vision of that already. So throughout the age, everybody had their own vision. So I guess that nowadays everything has to look like an iPhone or drone. But I'm saying it's not just that. If you want to have, yeah, I was about to say something wrong. If you want to have a future in video games or movies, you should try to find something different. It's not true. Unfortunately, it's not true. But if you want to be a good designer, and if you want to be proud of what you're doing because you've elevated your skill to an art, and if you're using your brain to come up with new stuff or more intelligent ways of dealing with a certain design, then do that. Use your brain. So, yeah, it can be as simple as I've seen people having that problem very, very often. That most people are not capable of brainstorming. It's weird, but if you're never told or never taught how to randomize stuff, I guess that you're not used to it. But you really can take anything on the table and say, okay, look, I'm going to make something out of felt. Okay, so everything will be felt, and there will be some knobs on the armor, and some stamps that will eventually come into play in the story, and I don't know. There will be some notion of time, and you will be able to play with it at some point, or you can just create your own framework for any design or any story, and limitate your framework to a very small, limited amount of tools that you have to encompass and play with, and build something with that. So let's say 5 things, and that could be a rule, but you could create a rule of 6 or 10 or 20. You're the one playing with yourself. Anyway, that should be fun. And the idea is that for every new design, you take a new rule and you say, okay, I'm picking up something in the room or in my memory, or 5 words that my friends are saying while eating a pizza and playing Mario Kart, and you come up with something that only uses that will make your design different. It's like rolling a dice. It's the same idea, except that it's with concepts. It helps quite a bit. But there's thousands of billions of ways of coming up with random stuff to make your designs more interesting. Yeah, and it touches fashion. It touches plenty of things. You can first look at what was the vision of sci-fi throughout the ages. You look as back as you want. You could even think that in the Bible time, what is considered sci-fi could be holy. Icons of what is bigger than man. That could be God, or that could be the angels, or that could be anything. There was even some icons depicting the finger of God or the wrath of God, which was a flying cylinder, a metal cylinder above a sea. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So you're like, okay, why not? You can go as far in the past as you want and analyze what people were thinking of, what was the bigger, more advanced technology, technology in a very wide sense of the term, mainly what is beyond understanding for mankind, meaning that we should be frightened because we don't get it and it can kill you. And when you've seen all the differences throughout the ages of what people were seeing as what was sci-fi, then you can look into every period and try to understand why things were looking that way for that period of time. And what would be the repercussion in the society, in fashion, in object design, in architecture, but also, if you really have time for it, sociologically. And yeah, that's a lot of homework already. But you can do that with anything. So the more you learn, the more you ask questions, and the asking question part is really fucking important. It's like every time you come up with a design, make a list of at least 20 questions, at least, questioning your own design. Like, why is this thing like that? Why is he like that? Why is he blonde? Why is he tall? Why is he only one leg? Why does he wear buttons? Why the color? Why? How does he mate? Does he have friends? How is the civilization? It can be just a tiny little character with a short and a watch. It could be called Bob. That could be written on his badge. And with just that, you could come up with so much stuff, so many answers. What he's got in his pockets, you don't even have to see it, but you should answer these questions because it will help you understanding who that character is. It's like again, I'm going back to that because I'm big on the self-defense thing. But if you want to analyze a situation, to see if, in that very case, that would be if there's a threat or anything in a bar or something, you would look at what people are wearing, their demeanor, the obvious thing, but, and what they have on them, what they have in their pockets, on the table, if they're sitting at a bar, what kind of, if you know, like the obvious stuff, if they have 20 bottles of beer empty in front of them, you know, it's kind of obvious he's got a couple of bubbles in his stomach, or but if you look at what people are, and this is very important, if you look at what people have put on the table, which is mainly what they made a fistful of items that they had in their pocket, or this is the thing that they just can't carry in their pockets. That's also another question, why? And they put it on the table at the terrace. If you look at those few items, it will tell you a lot about the person. So, like car keys, for example. How many keys he's got on his keyring? What kind of keys? Is there any little stupid thing attached to it? Was he the client for a carpet reseller for the past 20 years? Did he get a special mini carpet as a gift, as a keyring, or is he? Is he the owner of the Lamborghini Countach in front of the establishment, or does he have one key? The key of what? It's a very special key. How is the key? Is it a tiny little rotten key, or is it plastic toy, or is it the kind of key that can open a very, very secure facility, or a very expensive flat? Is he carrying a phone? A phone nowadays says everything about us. I'm not even talking about what's in the phone. I'm just talking about the kind of phone he's got, what kind of wealth that guy has, or not. You can have an iPhone, which is a relatively expensive phone. You can have the upper luxurious version of that iPhone, which is a golden-plated, custom-made iPhone. You don't even have to do that. Most people don't want to express their wealth that much. They can be cool, wealthy people having just an iPhone because most people have it, and then it's like whatever. They're part of the mass, and they're happy with that. Or you have an iPhone that you stole, or you have an iPhone because you're using it all the time, or you have an iPhone just to loop the part because you want a job, and you know that having a clean pressed white shirt and an iPhone helps you getting a job interview, or just because you're checking it all the time to make sure that that girl is calling you back. So all of that is analyzable. You can analyze anything. And yeah, you can, on any design, create plenty of narrative windows, as I call them, which are tiny little objects that are bringing you to another layer, another depth of the story that you're telling or not telling. But in any case, in your head, you should ask yourself all these questions and answer them. And the funny thing is that the more you ask yourself questions, the more you get the answers to these questions, and the more you modify your design, and the more your design looks like it's more than a design. It's more stories. There's depth there. You can feel it. You don't have, as a reader, the answer to all these questions, but you feel like they've been answered, and that's very important.
Ah, good stuff, man. I like that. Learned a lot in this stream. Guys, I don't know if you guys were able to hear me the whole time. I think the actual mic was off for me. They could hear you the whole time. They couldn't. I don't think they could hear me, which is fine because I think you repeated the questions anyway. But I think they can hear me now. But all right, well, I think that was it. Good stuff, man. We learned a lot, and thank you again for being a part of Ascension. Hopefully, maybe we can get you again down the road, maybe a year from now or something.
Sure, anytime you want.
I will bug you. Next, we have guys. Yana Shermer is our next judge.
She's amazing and she's lovely.
She really is. And thanks, guys, for participating, and thanks again, Igor. We'll be in touch. And
see you. Have fun. Good luck to everyone.
Cool, man. Thank you.
See ya.
See you guys. Thanks for coming.